Welcome to Death Holler. Do you like scary movies? Welcome to Season 3, Slash or Pass. There will be laughter, tears, tender moments,
Jason, my special boy.
but most of all, screams. Remember, when you're in Death Holler, listener discretion is always advised. We hope you have a killer time.
You know, our listeners, they don't know this, but we just recorded an episode of Wednesday. We did a review of the whole series, so catch that this coming Wednesday. But that very last scream that we get is Jenna Ortega in Scream 5.
Wow, I didn't know that. I like that intro more and more I hear it, just like the little things that you've added in there, especially the end where it ends on that Friday, or I mean the nightmare music or whatever. That's a good way to end it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun putting together.
So have you been watching anything recently besides Wednesday?
No, it was Wednesday. Have I watched anything? I'm horrible. I forget the movies that I've watched. I think I've been watching more. I hate to say this. I've been watching holiday bullshit.
I've been meaning to watch holiday bullshit, but I've been
just
watching.
watched Anna and the Apocalypse. A couple days
We
ago.
did. Yes, we did watch Anna and the Apocalypse.
Well, that's still holiday bullshit, but it's it's at least themed for Death Holler too. So
that movie, it's such a good movie, and I don't like musicals. So for reference, I mean, no spoils or anything. I like the movie, but I fucking hate zombie movies. I get anxiety watching that movie. It's good.
I think I watched Anna and the Apocalypse a couple of years back, but I mean, I have a hard time remembering if it's that or another shitty zombie movie that I watched. Not that that's a bad one. It's just that if I remember right, I mean, even with the musical stuff going on, it's kind of a low budget looking movie.
Kind of.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
low budget, but production executed.
Yeah, it's better than your random run of the mill, like, zombie movie that somebody put together in their backyard. I mean, I'm not saying that, but you can tell by the way that they light it and everything else that it's not like, studio level for sure.
It's good. The quality of the movie is actually surprisingly good for how much the budget probably they put on it.
it's got the rapping penguins.
I need to go back and rewatch it then, because I might be confusing it with something else. So
yeah, it was funny. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I mean, there was several that I watched around the same time as that, and I think that I'm not giving it its due, because a lot of people have said that that's a pretty good one. And I mean, I didn't hate it, but I also just like it was all right. Here's a zombie movie with singing, but I'm thinking there's another movie that came out around that time that was like a romantic comedy. And I don't know if this might be the movie. I don't know, but it was like this girl. It was almost like she didn't realize that didn't even act like there were zombies around her for like, part way into the movie or something like that. And I can't remember. I think I'm mixing them together. There was a lot that I watched right back to back.
There's a part of the movie where that kind of happens. She gets up and gets ready for school, and she's kind of like singing in a happy mood. She doesn't realize everything's just falling apart.
Yeah, that's why I keep thinking I've seen it, because I remember something like that, but then but my mind is like combining two or three others on top of that I watched around that time.
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, obviously we're watching horror films for the show, and I mostly stick to that because I'll get burnt out super bad on a genre, but I don't feel like I got enough of Halloween this year, which is why my Halloween decorations are upstairs right now in Christmas gear.
I was getting ready to say they've been repurposed. I've seen the pictures.
Yes, so we've got that. And so it was kind of a surprise because my son, who is the jolliest child you'll ever meet, I mean, he enjoys a horror film, but he loves Christmas more than anything. And we're like, what movie did you put on? We hear Christmas music playing. He's like, it's Anna and the Apocalypse. And I think my daughter and I were just like, oh, thank God, because it's just once Halloween, November 1st hits and Halloween's over, it's Christmas nonstop in this house by my kid. It's hard.
Well, he was kind of limited because I was putting the new server together.
Yeah.
So, like, there wasn't really a lot of holiday movies. So the moment... Like, it was down all for Halloween, so we didn't have any type of horror movies we could really watch. And then it got up and running, and now, boom, here we are.
You're not going to be eating popcorn while we're recording.
Watch me.
Please don't.
I don't know. I'm in a different frame of mind right now because, I mean, this is a spoiler for the episode that we're getting ready to record, but I was pleasantly surprised by these movies, and I was in the mood to continue along with those type of things as opposed to like shifting gears and like watching holiday movies. The only one that I watched is the A Christmas Story Christmas on HBO Max.
Oh, yeah.
I actually enjoyed. I mean, not that that's what this show's about, but I did enjoy that. I mean, you know, there's been the only other sequel to A Christmas Story that kind of hit the mark in a little bit of a way is I think it's My Summer Story is the name they rebranded it under, but there was another like made for TV movie with Charles Grodin as the old man, or, you know, Ralphie's dad in that version. And it's just about him like going fishing with his father during a summer. And it's a good movie because you get the same feels at some points, but Charles Grodin is not Darren McGavin, and it does not come off the same way.
Yeah, he pulls that whole film off.
And they do a wise thing in the new movie, even though they don't. They do recast like the mother. I think it's because maybe she stopped acting years ago or something. They were going to get her in it, but they wisely chose to frame the movie around the point that Darren McGavin has passed away in the movie's universe, and that's what's the catalyst for the entire movie. But they play enough callbacks to him from the original movie that it's perfect. It gives you because it's like you're sitting there and Ralphie's remembering, you know, how his dad took care of them whenever they were kids around Christmas, and it gives you a lot, you know, of emotion from that, and it's a good way for them to base the movie around.
Yeah, but one of the movies you're gonna talk about, just to roll right into it,
Christmas themed.
It is Christmas themed, and I am hearing some. Now, is this a newer one? Because everybody's talking about this like it must have just come out.
It came out this Friday or Thursday, depending on where you're at.
Hearing a lot of good things. Why don't you let us know what we're talking about?
It's Violent Night that's got David Harbour as Saint Nick. And he does have his dad bod in this one.
Yes!
If that makes you feel any better.
Hot dad bod, Dave Harbour.
This is dad bod with snowflake tattoos at one scene when he takes his shirt off. So you get a shirtless David Harbour with a dad bod.
Babe, we need this movie.
And he's got tats over most of his chest.
Does he have a little surprise in Santa sack for me?
Probably. I mean, this Santa Claus has been having some issues with Mrs. Claus, and their relationship's on the rocks for part of the movie. So, I mean, you know, there might be a chance there for you.
I don't even know who David Harbour is.
He's from Stranger Things. He's
the sheriff that takes over as the surrogate father
Hopper.
for 11.
All right.
I made you dress up as him for Halloween one year. You didn't know it. We were role playing.
Really? I'm going to give you the Vecna.
But no, it's a good movie. I wouldn't call it a horror movie. It's horror adjacent. It's definitely it's more of an action black comedy than it is anything. But I mean, there's enough gore scenes that I think horror fans will get what they want out of the movie.
Did he say it was a black comedy?
Stop it. That's not what he meant.
There's it's, if you want to call it a dark comedy, whatever you want to call it. But there's another movie that I'm going to review or talk about here in a second that's the same way. But anyways, but yeah, it's got a setup similar to The Fat Man, if you've seen that.
Oh, my husband loves that movie.
Hell yeah, that's a good ass movie. Kids love that movie.
This is a little bit more magical because that's one thing I like about the Fat Man is that he play it realistic for most of the movie, and all the magic in it's like subtle, especially toward the ending of that film. Whereas in this one, he's got all the tropes right from the get-go. I mean, he's on the sleigh that's in the sky right from the first few minutes. And then he's got the ability to go up chimneys, which they used a great effect later on at the end of the movie. I'm not going to spoil it, but him going up chimneys is definitely a plot point that they use to their benefit. Just by like touching the side of his nose, and he, dissipates and then goes up the chimney. But they've got a cool history for him. I don't want to reveal what it is, but it's Norse in nature and not like Christian or anything. He's got links to Norse mythology in this movie.
Okay, that's cool because that's big in the Christmas that you and I have discussed, anyways. That's big. It's the origination, if you will.
And it plays into his ability to fight back with people. I'll just put it that way. So it's a if you're going to make a movie where Santa Claus, this is literally the movie that they were pitching at the beginning of Scrooged. Where Santa Claus is like being attacked by a bunch of like pro level, like military people.
Oh my God.
That's what you're getting with this.
Okay. Is there any slasher in this? Is there any of that genre in it?
Santa Claus would be the slasher in this because he is stalking people one by one and taking them out in various gory ways.
The night Santa went crazy.
Who's been naughty.
But he's not the bad guy in the movie. They don't paint it that way. It's just he just happens to be. This is in the setup for the film. In the trailer, he's at a house of a rich family. And the girl of the family happens to not be a piece of shit, unlike the rest of her family, which is funny because it almost feels like the family in this could have came from Krampus when we covered that, where all the family's a piece of shit. And then there's the one kid that still believes in Santa Claus. Same setup. And so he's there and he's just for her. He's just there to deliver her gift. And then this family is ultra rich. So they get attacked by John Leguizamo and his goons who know that they have like this stash of millions of dollars in a safe somewhere on their property. And they're there to take it. And, and then he just happens to get caught up in the mix and he has to fight his way out of it. Okay.
This is right up my alley.
And they have callbacks to all kinds of the Christmas movies that you love. They deliberately set up the beginning of the movie that the little girl has just seen Home Alone. And there is such a good callback at the end because she's in the attic. She is hiding from the bad guys. And she asked Santa Claus, do you think it'd be a good idea if I booby trapped, like, in Home Alone? And he said, sure, whatever you need to do. Protect yourself. And those are some fucking gory ass booby traps.
Wow.
If you ever saw the scenes in Home Alone and said there's no way they'd walk away from that, they don't in this. Oh. So it's worth it for that.
Oh, the kids are gonna love it.
And what I love about it too is, they've even got callbacks to Die Hard. Whether you want to admit that Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not, this movie, there's a scene in the movie where Santa Claus, after he's been heavily damaged, is trying to stitch himself back up, and he's on a walkie-talkie talking to the little girl, and it has to be deliberate. It's like, when Bruce Willis is talking to Reginald Vell Johnson, and when he's patching himself up, and, they're kind of sharing their histories with each other. That's what I thought of instantly when I saw it. I'm like, they've pretty much hit all the holiday movies in this one as far as references. There's an icicle at one point in the movie, and you just know that it's going to go in somebody's eye because Ralphie had the one fall and hit his glasses. So there's that. All kinds of stuff like that in the movie.
Do they do it without making it feel like it's a bunch of member berries, though?
Yes, they work it into the plot. It's not like they wink at the camera at all. It's like they put them in there, and if you catch the only one that's the wink at the camera is the Home Alone stuff. Like, it's deliberate. Okay. Like they outright say that to the camera. But there's a scene toward the end of the movie where Santa Claus is trying to catch up with some of the bad guys that are on these snow skis or whatever you call them, snowmobiles, and he grabs like this thing that's underneath like a baby Jesus in the manger or whatever, and like it looks like a sled that the one that Clark Griswold or something similar to that Clark Griswold, rode in a Christmas Vacation. And so there's a scene where you see him, like he hops on it real quick and like slides down there to catch up with them. So they even call back Christmas Vacation. Well, and they call Christmas Vacation back in another way, in the fact that the mother of the family is actually Beverly D'Angelo.
Oh, shit.
So they've got that link already in the movie without doing anything else.
Are her boobies hanging out in a very festive holiday low-cut shirt?
No, she's dressed up like in a pantsuit type situation. She almost gives you Hillary Clinton vibes in this movie. And I think that's deliberate because she's supposed to play like this rich,
okay,
connected politician-esque character. But man, Beverly D'Angelo has smoked like a whole carton of cigarettes every day of her life for like the last 30 years. Like when she talks,
her voice even deeper now?
It is a deep smoker's rasp. I mean, it's like, do you tell me to do what I do with my kid? Like that type of thing. It's
Newports. Where are the Newports?
But yeah, I recommend it. It was entertaining, and I love the little callbacks they did. And if you're a gore hound, there's blood and dismembered body parts.
What's it called?
Violet Night. It's new.
Somebody gets their head set on fire, and their code name is Frosty. So that's lovely that they do a callback to that. There's a guy named Krampus is his code name in the movie.
Wow.
Yeah,
it doesn't miss a Christmas beat at all, huh?
No, John Leguizamo's code name is Scrooge. So I mean, it goes all the way around.
Dang.
And he's very similar to the character that Walton Goggins plays in Fat Man 2. There's a link. My ultimate double bill with this movie would be to watch it and Fat Man at the same, or back to back, because I mean, both characters were screwed over by Santa Claus whenever they were kids, or feel like they were, and now they hate Santa and everything that he stands for.
Which is funny because I watched Fat Man with the hubbies. I mean, a little bit. I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't see the ending. And I liked it, but I didn't get into it. I don't know how to explain what's wrong with me. So
I recommended to somebody else, and they said they didn't get into it either. You have to, when you're going into the movie, it doesn't feel like a holiday movie for a lot of it, even though he is Santa. They don't come out and spell it that way in the movie. It's very subtle with a lot of its references.
I didn't think it was a Santa movie at all when I was watching it. I was just kind of watching like, what is going on here? I was intrigued, but it was just weird. I just couldn't get into it. And then the hubby watched it multiple times, and he's like, that's one of my favorite Christmas movies now. And I'm like, what? And he's like, it's about Santa. And I was like, what?
Especially if you watch the ending.
Yes.
That ending, definitely, he is Santa, because...
And that's where I missed it.
I'm not going to spoil what happens to him, but yeah, he shouldn't be walking away from what happens to him at the end of the movie, but he does. So he's definitely Santa Claus in that sense.
Well, a little behind the scenes real quick. We're doing a holiday show. We have to do our Christmas slasher. Do we want to do a special presentation of Violent Night? Because I want to watch it.
I mean, we can for sure. I mean, if you want to have a discussion about it, I mean, I'd be ready for it. I mean, we can kind of go over it.
Okay.
I mean, whenever you all see it.
See if we'll see. We know Donnie G's in a little bit of trouble. We'll get into that a little later. He might not be able to do a Christmas horror, but maybe. So.
The other movie I saw recently that just came out is The Menu. That's the one that's got Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh, I want to see that.
Yeah, that one's really good. I was really surprised by it, though. I went into it thinking it was going to be like a horror movie, thriller at the very edge of that. More like a Deadliest Game, the way they portray it in the
in the
trailer. Because it looks like they've invited them to this place and they're going to hunt them for food or sport or whatever you want to call it. That's not what the movie is. It builds tension like no other. Like, I got to give them credit. The people that made this movie, like, it just, I mean, from the moment that the movie starts, it starts out, and then you feel that there's some weirdness here, but it's okay. And then when they get to the actual location, they start sitting down to the meal, which is like a big set, fancy 7-course dinner. They interject with something I like in between. Every time right before they reveal the meal, they show the movie gives you this big splash screen that gives you the name of the item, what's in it, blah, blah, blah. So that's like you're seeing the menu along with the people there. And they just keep, with each edition of each, segment of the meal, they keep building up the tension. Like they've got all these characters around. John Leguizamo's in it again. He's in 2 very good movies back to back. He's playing an ex-actor in this one. No, he's a current actor in this one, but he thinks he's a foodie. So the main character, the character that has brought Anya Taylor-Joy along with him, Nicholas Hoult, is a true foodie, and he looks down on John Leguizamo's character because he's like, he's just a celebrity that plays at this. I've got the refined palate, that kind of bullshit.
God.
And that's what the movie's about. The movie is a very dark comedy that is totally taking the shit out of pretentious Hollywood folks and people in like that whole sphere that think that they're above the blue collar working class, that their palates are more refined, that they deserve this high dollar shit that's farm to table, that they're beyond like the peasants' food, that they need these like high quality special presentations. The movie is all about that, and that's all I'm going to say about it as far as the plot. But that when I got to the end of the movie, and my wife pointed out, it's made by Adam McKay and Will Ferrell. Now, if you ever watched The Other Guys, that movie is a comedy, a buddy comedy, cop comedy, but it's also a very smart takedown of the whole Ponzi scheme level stuff that was going on in 2008, I believe it was.
Yeah.
This movie is that same biting commentary about the rich and the elite, but more with a food base, and like how they take art and they destroy it because they hold it away from other people and don't value what they've got. They like the exclusivity that it gives them, if you understand what I'm saying. Like they don't, that's so it doesn't sound interesting, but damn, they make a good movie out of it.
And no, it does sound interesting. It sounds like something, it sounds like it's interesting enough that I'd want to know what would happen next. That's why I watch bad shows, because like they make it just interesting enough to kind of stick around to see what happens next. So I feel like that's what would happen in this movie. Not saying the movie's not good, just saying it sounds like it would hold my interest enough to where I would make it to the end. But do you think that any of the actors in this film, or even anybody in production, is what the actors were playing in the film a pretentious motherfucker that thinks they're better?
I don't know, but they probably had a come to Jesus moment after they filmed this. Because, I mean, the commentary is so biting that I can't imagine that they didn't look at themselves and say, are we this way? Is this what we're portraying? Like there's even a scene at the beginning of it where Anya Taylor-Joy is like, she's off to the side and she starts smoking or whatever. Nicholas Hoult, being the kind of character is in the movie, looks at her and says, what are you doing? Don't smoke. He said, that's going to destroy your taste buds' ability to pick up on the refined palate that you're getting ready to enjoy. And like that's how pretentious this character is, that she's going to this exclusive place about. And then there's this whole thing about how she was not on the list of people that was supposed to be on this, at this exclusive resort, because the person he had originally put down as his number 2 bailed on him at the last minute, broke up with him, and then you're trying to figure out why is she here with him, and like why, and she's clearly not of the same class of people as they are. Like she's got a lot of like white trash, blue collar stuff going on in her own. So I mean, there's a lot of that in it.
Which is funny because in the previews or the trailer, she looks fancy enough, but you get the vibe, like they flat out say it in the trailer, you don't belong here, like.
Yeah, and that's what they're meaning by that. It's like she has got into a world that she is not supposed to be part of, and it's bad for her in the sense that, I mean, very bad things were planned, and she chose the wrong time to come there, basically.
Oh my God.
But I mean, as far it's a masterclass in building tension. I mean, they do a great job. Like, I mean, course after course, like the characters start freaking out more and more as they realize something isn't right. They kind of laugh it off at first because, I mean, it seems like this chef who's played by Voldemort of all people, Ralph Fiennes, however he says his name. He seems like Gordon Ramsay.
Yes.
If Gordon Ramsay had no sense of humor. And that's a scary thought, because
Gordon Ramsay didn't have a sense of humor until
yes, he did.
Right at the beginning.
Gordon Ramsay's always had a sense of humor.
a dry sense of humor.
He's always had a very dry sense of humor, but it's humor. So if you take that away from him and he's just a complete and total asshole.
Yeah.
But he's British.
That's what
he's British and then he's an ex-athlete. So he's not going to he's going to be more dry and his being an athlete and being around other athletes. His sense of humor is going to have a lot more bite to it.
Okay, the athletes I get. The British, fuck off. That's like saying I'm a Gemini. It's just, Mercury is in Gatorade.
The British have a totally different, very dry wit. Like their comedy,
very different culture. Watch the Mighty Python's Flying Circus and tell me you can't see how dry the humor is.
He's in America. Fucking act like it.
But all I'm saying with that is just the fact that if you imagine this character and he comes out and he's got all of the fierceness, all of the just competitive, all that stuff that Gordon Ramsay puts off, but with none of that like dark biting humor that he puts behind it. That's what you're getting with this character. And they laugh it off at the beginning because they think, oh, that's just how he is.
Yeah.
He's got a weird personality quirk. But the more and more goes along and the more shit they start seeing because it starts getting overt, then it's like, oh, God, what have we got ourselves into? And then that's kind of where you've got with a movie. So,
oh, my God.
And they're on an island that's away from everybody. So you got to remember that, too. They are trapped in this location. It is almost like the setup. Well, actually, for one of the movies we're going to cover tonight, Bay of Blood. It is on a bay. It is secluded, and there's no way for any help to be coming there.
You know what it kind of reminded me of, and I don't know if you're familiar with this. Have you seen the horror survival game, not Little Monsters? It's the game that the kids play where they're on.
That's the one that you showed me where they're a little creature trying to get away from that chef that's trying to catch them and cook them or whatever.
Yeah, they're in this weird, the way that they showed this island that these people are on where they're doing the menu. It looks very similar to the game that my kids played. Little Nightmares is what it was called.
Yeah, the whole setup of the reason it's on that island is that it's totally freshly sourced food to table. Like everything that they serve is something that grows or lives by that island. So that's the whole setup for the movie. That's how pretentious these people are.
That's how it is in Little Nightmares. Oh my God. It's children, freshly served children.
And to be perfectly honest with you, this would actually make a pretty good movie to watch around Thanksgiving because of the whole meal aspect of it. And, it's a good Thanksgiving horror adjacent movie. I can't call it a true horror movie because when the comedy, it's about, I want to say at least halfway, if not 2/3 of the way through the movie, they start introducing more and more comedy. And it's a good relief off of the tension, even if the stuff is getting more and more insane.
Yeah.
But it's like you're watching it and it's enjoyable. It is such dark, biting humor, like every bit of it. It's like they're going for the juggler with every bit of comedy they introduce in this movie.
Well, I don't know that it's going to replace our now authentic Addams Family Values for Thanksgiving movie, but maybe it's a nice little contender.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good one to add into a rotation for people. If you're tired of if you know that you're going to get into the saccharine stuff, come December 1st or even Black Friday, and you're wanting something to kind of give you a palate cleanser, which is funny because they have one in the movie. Of course they do. Then it's worth putting this on just before. It's like, okay, if we're going to have to start watching this and we're going to have this, right beforehand.
That's what our poor daughter needs. She needs a little palate cleanser every now and then. She's going crazy.
And then I watched The Green Knight, which I finally caught up on. That was the A24 movie that's based on the Arthurian legend. It's told with a twist on the story because in the original story about the Green Knight, I believe the character is presented in the movie as being virtuous and all that, but he does survive at the end by doing a cheat. He gets a magical belt or a sash or whatever that protects him from the cleaving chop that the Green Knight has promised him. The whole gist of the movie is that I think it's Gawain or Gawain, as depending upon how you want to say it, Sir Gawain, who is actually portrayed in this as being the nephew to King Arthur. And his mother is portrayed as being was it Morgan Le Fay, I believe is her name, I believe that's the character's name. But anyways, like the one with the powers that was always opposed to King Arthur in a lot of his stories, they've kind of like mixed it around where she's his sister, and she is, and her son is going to take over because Arthur never could sire an heir. So, and he's trying to basically the Arthur in this one's very weak. He's dying. It played the character, the actor they got to play Arthur in this. I swear to God, I thought for a second that they had resurrected. Was it Anton Yelchin or Yelchin? You know what I'm talking about, the actor who was in the Fright Night remake that was also Scotty in the new Star Trek movies. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
Oh God.
I swear to God they had resurrected him because this actor looks and sounds just like that guy. Like, I mean,
Same
down to a
horrible
T.
Russian
Like,
accent.
But he plays like a really weak Arthur. Like, you can tell that Camelot is crumbling, and he's like, so he's trying to, prepare his nephew for the potential of replacing him. And then there's like, it just so happens that, and it's hinted in the movie that it was instigated by Gawain's mother of all persons to kind of make him look more manly or whatever, look like he could take the throne. She summons the Green Knight, which is like this pagan, like tree-like creature, to come in during a Christmas get together that Arthur's having, and he throws down a challenge. It's apparently a challenge that they used to do in medieval times, which sounds god awful to me, but they would basically say, I'm going to give you the option of you can behead me, or you can just nick me barely, but whatever you do to me, just remember that it's coming back to you, the same. And so that gives the person the potential. They can either, go through the route of completely beheading the person right off the bat, thinking that, of course, they're not going to, retaliate, because how could they? Or they can do the slight nick, which kind of shows that they're kind of a pussy because they're afraid of what might come back to them. And he throws down that gauntlet to everybody, including the Knights of the Round Table are there. And Arthur, asked his nephew if he would meet the challenge. Because he's clearly, and he even offers Excalibur up to do it. And then in the scene, it's Gawain has the opportunity. He can totally scot-free just nick this guy's like one of the branches on his head, because he's completely offered his head up to be chopped off. But Gawain thinks he's going to be a badass and like cuts his head clear off. And so when the Green Knight turns around and reattaches his head and then says, "A year from now, you will meet the same fate," then he's got to spend the rest of his time basically pissing himself, knowing that what he's got to do to man up and meet the challenge. And that's what the movie's about. It's like his journey to, whether or not he, meets that challenge and the little quest that he finds along the way. And it's very well done. Like the visuals are amazing in this movie. Like, they perfectly recreate like an old, whatever Middle Ages Europe or whatever they were going for with that. Cause it looks the part. Like, everything's scummy looking once you get outside of Camelot, just dirt, mud everywhere, a lot of misty forest.
Okay, hold on. I need you to explain something to me. Make it make sense how they made.
There's even a ghost in the movie, by the way. There's a whole scene where he has to prove himself to a ghost.
Oh no. Okay, make it make sense to me why Kate Dickie is Guinevere.
Because they wanted somebody that was completely butt ass ugly.
Tell me about it. Isn't Guinevere like notoriously supposed to be like this gorgeous?
She was supposed to be gorgeous, and then Lancelot even cheated, or like his heart was like tempted by her in several of the stories, and I saw her and I'm like, there's no way in hell that any man would be like trying to steal her away from Arthur. There's no way.
Oh no. I saw that and I was like, you're fucking kidding me, right?
Now, this is supposed to be an old Arthur, and she is also on the verge of dying, too, because there's a scene where they're both laying in bed, and they both look like frail and look like they're about to pass away.
Okay, that makes sense. She can do that very well. She looks like that's standing up and doing normal daily stuff.
The stranger thing is that they cast, I believe, the main characters of, he's not of European descent. I don't know if he's like Middle Eastern.
Oh, Dev Patel?
Yeah, Gawain. Yeah,
Gawain.
It's an interesting choice for the character, but he does a great job with it. He's great in the movie.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. They also, it looks like they have, she's kind of African American. partially. Oh, they do have African American guy. I mean, he's a soldier, but I guess that makes sense. But
but they the visual effects, especially for the Green Knight, I mean, that he is so creepy, and like and the sound quality, like every time he moves, it's like limbs creaking in the wind, it's great.
Gawain is gaining popularity in recent times. I'm not saying he was never a relevant character. He always was in, when it comes to King Arthur, but like I feel like he's getting some kind of comeuppance as of recently. At least in the past 3 years, I'm hearing so many more stories about him, and he wasn't as forward-facing in the past in terms of hearing about King Arthur or hearing any stories.
Well, they did a neat twist in this movie because in the original story, he was always like every challenge. There's like 3 challenges he has to meet before he meets the Green Knight, and they're supposed to like prepare him for his eventual end.
Yeah.
And he's always gallant in the original stories. He's always virtuous, always does what he's supposed to. This Gawain fucks up every single challenge that he goes across. He's such a piece of shit. And like by the time that it comes to the end of the movie, that's the twist in the movie, is the one time that he's virtuous is whenever he's supposed to meet his maker. But they give you an alternate version that he imagines right before that, is if he runs away from the challenge and he just goes back to Camelot, acts like he did what he's supposed to, and takes over for Arthur. They give you a whole series of events showing like his life after that, and basically Camelot falls apart under his rulership because he was a weak man.
Yeah,
and he never met any of his challenges, and so he sees that, he imagines it, and he does what the real Gawain never did. He takes the sash off right in front of the Green Knight and lets him know, this is a full-on challenge, and I'm full-on meeting it. So go ahead and chop my fucking head off. So, and that's how the movie basically ends.
Yeah, because that kind of goes in line with, I have not been able to determine for myself, based on all the stories I've heard about Gawain as of recent, whether he's a hero, an anti-hero, or if he's an asshole. I can't because there's so many different versions of him now coming up, that he was this great guy, or that he stole Guinevere, or that, all this other shit. I don't know.
Well, I like how they ended it, because and some people might not, because it literally doesn't show him even getting his head chopped off. And that spoiling the ending's not spoiling the movie, because it's the journey more than the end.
Yeah.
Some people would actually hate the ending, but it's literally like you see him take the sash off after he foresaw what his future would be like if he doesn't meet the challenge, and he looks at the Green Knight and he says, "I'm ready." And then the Green Knight, in a very loving and endearing way, leans down and says, he's like, good night, or he says something to the effect of like, fair, and then he says, he says, "Off with your head, good night," or something like that. But he lets him know it's such a like fatherly tone. It's like you've stood up and you've become a man. It's like basically how it ends. But then but that's all you see, and it cuts off. So it's one of those endings where you can like paint whatever ending you want. Like maybe the Green Knight let him go, but even without all that, he showed that he had what it took to actually stand up and become the man that he was supposed to be.
Did he defeat the Hun?
He doesn't defeat anybody in the movie. Like, the funny thing is like, for instance, when he meets the ghost, she is a woman who has been killed very recently, or in recent, like the few weeks before he got there, and her head was chopped off. It was by another knight that came through there, and she offered him to stay in her home, and he basically tries to rape her. She tries to get away from him, and then in anger he cuts her head off, and he throws her head in like a nearby pool of water, and her whole thing is that she can't move on.
Oh shit.
Without her head.
Is she the lady of the water? The lady of the lake, I mean?
No, this is like some completely different. And so when she tells him, when he realizes he's dealing with a spirit at this point, he looks at her, and instead of offering just to help her, which would be the noble thing to do, he looks at her and straight up says, "What will you give me if I help you?" And then she even spouts back to him. It's like, "Are you seriously asking for a favor if you help me with this?" Showing even further that he's still a piece of shit. That he sees this spirit in need and he won't even help it. but he does. I mean, and he goes along, but it's only after he's been turned down for reward. So, but that's kind of how the movie goes. It's just one after the other, him failing to live up to what he's supposed to.
Oh my God.
But I highly recommend it. It's. I mean, I love the way that they filmed it, and it's very trippy in some scenes. Like he gets high on some shrooms at one point and sees these like naked giants like walking through a valley, and it's crazy. The scenes are crazy to watch.
Okay.
But I think we've talked long enough. We probably need to get into this, so I think we should let them in.
We'll let them in.